We are live here. Okay, so welcome back to the InfluxData Gambit chess tournament. We are just getting started here with, we're in the C bracket right now, I guess. And we've got Wojciech and Darin playing. And the game's already started, so let's it's off to a fiery start. Let's back up and see what's going on. We've got King's Pawn opening, and I don't know this is any specific opening, but already getting pretty spicy. Looks like there's already a tactic here where you can take this pawn and threaten to win the rook. You have to move the knight to save the piece by connecting the rook and the queen. Yeah, it's not unusual. These guys are just beginner players. It's not unusual for these tactics to stay on the board for a while before somebody spots them. And okay, we're up to current time. So let's see what happens. Let's see what's going on. So it looks like, yeah. So the big issue here is that the rook has been lined up with the queen, and that's pretty threatening. Also, the king's still in the center of the board, and the pawns are kind of not defending it. They're off to the side. And so, this kind of leaves white a lot more exposed than black. Black's king can get to safety pretty easily, but white needs a couple moves to figure out what to do. Maybe even move the pieces out of the way and castle queenside here would be a good plan. But yeah, white's very exposed here, and here you see part of the problem is it's very easy for black to get into the position. Now you have to block, and this block undefends the knight, so yeah, and Darin sees it. So right away you're having problems with defending all your pieces. Okay, so Darin's up a knight now. Okay, so we drop back to kind of threaten the queen. Queen can't grab this pawn because it's defended, but goes back for the check, and then maybe you defend the other way now because okay, we defend the same way. That's okay, and that's reasonably good. But there's another pawn here that's left undefended, so probably just grab that other piece. And you're up. Okay. Darin says, nope, I'm going in for the kill. And brings another piece to the attack. I like this plan. White tries to trade off some of the pressure here. Saying, you're gonna have to take that or move your queen. And either way, even if you move your queen, I can take the piece and take some of the pressure off of the attack, which is a good principle. Whenever you're under an attack, you want to trade off pieces to kind of remove the pressure from the attack. As the attacker, you don't want to trade off pieces. You want to keep all your pieces active and attacking so that you can have the attack going. So Darin's going to be forced here to kind of to make this trade and lose some of the momentum of his attack. That's okay, I think. Okay, so unfortunately this doesn't keep the knight defended, and he drops it. Maybe he didn't have a move to keep the knight defended. Oh no, he had the move to going straight back. So there was an option there. I guess the issue is it's also attacked by the queen, so maybe you're going to lose the piece regardless. So that was actually quite a good move. The only correct move was, if we go back there a second, the only correct move I think was to take the knight. Everything else loses. So you force the exchange, and after the queen takes back, it's just a trade. this now drops the piece, and the game's a lot more even now. Darin's still up a pawn, but you've given the king time to castle, which is not the safest spot, but it's out of the direct line of fire. As black, maybe I would bring a rook out and pressure this pawn, force white to maybe add some defenses to it, and it's not over. You can you could bring another piece out and put some pressure here, try and tie down white's pieces. I guess as black you have this check, so you got to be watching to see if it does anything. Okay, so he plays it. Also getting out of the revealed move. So I mean, there's this revealed attack where the knight moves somewhere and then the rook sees the queen. So this move gets out of the way of that. So useful check. You can do so with tempo, meaning he's keeping. It's sort of a free move. You move, you check, and it's your move again. So now there isn't a crushing follow-up that I see. Okay, this is a mistake because the pawn can take the queen here, but he doesn't see it. Okay, so now that's game over because he can take the pawn, and now white has no pieces to defend. So this is checkmate here. So Wojciech needed to see that critical move that the pawn takes queen as the only defense here, and if he plays it, then he's winning. So we're gonna go on to game 2 here, and Darin takes the first lead here. All right, we'll just give it a second for game 2 to start. Both of these players are pretty new to chess. They've, I think, understand the rules and still are practicing and getting familiar with some of the intricacies of tactics and whatnot. And all right. Okay, game 2. Darin 1 point up, 1 win. Okay, looks like we have the French defense. White doesn't play the usual move of taking the center, but that's okay. Wojciech's going to play the French defense anyway. And in this case, I probably just I don't know, maybe I'd take. This isn't a bad move either, I don't think. A lot of tension in the center here. Everybody's kind of doesn't want to resolve which pawn takes which. Nobody's advancing here, just kind of leaving the tension in the center of the board. Okay, I don't like this move so much because the queen comes to the defense of the piece, but it kind of also pins itself, and black releases the tension right away by taking and resolves the problem for white. But what you could have done is just left the bishop there as long as possible, threatening to take the queen if the knight ever moves. Okay, and white takes here. Taking here is not great for white because it resolves black's problems. Black's problems with the French defense. And okay, this piece can be pinned. And he sees it right away, so there's a pin there. So you want to pin the piece and then attack it. So something like that. Also, just like kicking the queen away first is a good idea. Queen's got to move, and then you can attack the piece. I like that. Also preventing white from bringing a piece to defend by pushing. Okay, so this capture frees up the diagonal for the bishop to get out. One of the problems with the French defense is these pawns block in the light squared bishop, and by taking the pawn, you've now opened up the position, and you've kind of solved some of the problems for black. I think Black's doing quite well here. But I think there is... Okay, yeah. Okay, so Darin hung a piece here. We might be seeing a tied game and going into overtime. So let's see how that goes. So yeah, this... Okay, what does this last move do? It attacks the queen. Okay, so we've got to come up with something to do. We've got to move that queen because it's under attack. He should see it. So maybe even just moving it off to the side here and kind of like putting more pressure on this piece. Okay. Very fast moves here. Okay, throwing in a check with development, giving white the chance to castle here. So I kind of like that. King has to decide which way to move. Moving into the corner is a little safer from checks, but moving out of the corner is keeps the back rank a little stronger, so that you can't get back rank checkmates so easily. And now white has the chance to castle and should probably take it because it resolves the issues with this pin. And you know, if black is fast, that pin could become pretty dangerous. In knight f4 here, it comes with hitting the queen and hitting the pawn in the corner, and really kind of messes up black's structure. Okay, this is technically this is checkmate in 2 now. If Darin sees it, he sees that he can take the rook, queen takes back, and then rook takes, and that's check. And now because the king's in the corner, he can't get out, but he misses it, and this gives black a lot of opportunities here. Rooks takes d8 here was a good option, forcing the king to take back and losing the castling rights, trapping the king in the center of the board. But that wasn't played, and now our knight on the corner of the board is looking kind of sad. He's sort of trapped there. We do need some development. We do need to get some pieces out. So I like this because it's a developing move. You know, the bishop can't move because the rook is in behind it, right? So you're kind of encouraging white to capture it. You know, I don't like it as much because it kind of leaves your knight on the side of the board. Okay, so he misses that the rook is in behind it, and that's going to drop the rook. He should take it at this point, and he sees it. Okay, so Wojciech is doing well here. He's there's even some tricky ideas, like trying to bait your opponent into a checkmate by like putting your queen here and then just putting it on the back. And if he takes, you take back with the rook and it's checkmate. And those kind of tricks at this level will work more often than not. So something to consider. And you might be going for something like that. This kind of move here lines up the two pieces now, and I like it with the rook in front. You can, if so, I think rook d1 is probably coming now, and the idea is if white takes, he's in trouble. But if white doesn't take, okay, except white maybe sees it coming and moves the c pawn so that the queen can also defend the square. And now it's not so clear. Maybe you need to bring another piece into the mix, get the rook into the game. have 3 pieces lined up on that file. But that's going to be a slow maneuver, and it's going to give white time to readjust. Okay, he drops a pawn, maybe has to move the rook back or forward to get out of the line of fire of the bishops. Definitely getting it to the 7th rank is the preferred option. You have kind of control over your opponent's territory there. You put a lot of pressure on him. Okay, maybe we see the reason for the pawn push now was to bring the knight out to the side, defended by the rook. But this leaves the rook hanging, and white doesn't see it. Darin retreats instead. Okay, this gives white another chance to realize their mistake and capture the rook. The rook being more valuable than the bishop, it's probably an option he wants to take. Okay, attacking the knight on the side here. And he doesn't see the attack, so looks like that's going to be a free piece for Darin. But maybe he's got bigger problems. I mean, this rook coming out, attacking the queen kind of doesn't give him time to capture. Okay. Queen comes back, keeping defense of the important d1 square, and reasserting the attack on the h5 knight. And that knight's probably got to move now. Yeah, we see that. Good, he sees the hanging piece. This is good. And bishop takes d6 here. The best idea, just to capture that piece. And the rook is worth more than the bishop, so especially in this position, the rook is threatening to do some back rank trouble here. But this is a great threat of his own here. You know, the knight defends it at the moment, but if you can get that knight distracted, there's the idea of bringing the rook back with check, forcing the queen to take, because it's a fork of the queen and king. Queen will take, the bishop will take, and now you've had to trade off your wonderful queen for this rook. So, not ideal. Okay, so this gets out of the attack here now. Bishop can no longer capture the rook. Missed opportunity. Okay, and this is not good. This is mate in 2 now, because you can capture the rook. Queen has to recapture. Queen captures, and it's over. But he misses the mate. Okay, knight getting in the way of the attack here gives white some chances to fight back. And what do you do now as white? You know, I'd be tempted to capture this knight, but maybe you've got other problems. You know, okay, so as white, I think you need to make a left for your king. You need to make some room to eliminate this back rank checkmate opportunity. And this is an interesting idea. Sacrificing the bishop, maybe. Queen can take this, but there's not a clear follow-up here. So you've given up a bishop for a pawn, but where do you go from there? That leaves Wojciech up 2 pieces. You know, we've got a bishop against a knight, and we've got the rooks here, and so there's an extra rook and knight here for black. Okay, and again, hanging the checkmate. He just needs to take the piece, but he's also hanging the queen. So okay, so now takes, and we're gonna resolve this with material. Checkmate in 1, threatened again. White needs to make room for the king, which he sees now. we're gonna threaten the piece here, and this is the only move that doesn't immediately force the trade of the bishop, and this kind of loses it to the pawn here. So I think game 2 is going to go to Wojciech, and we're going to go on to the third game, to tiebreaker. Well played by Wojciech. He just needs to finish it now. So, yeah, take. That works. Okay, so winning idea here is cut off the diagonal and then check the king. This makes it a little bit harder, but you really need to get your pieces to coordinate together. We can do this. We'll get there. We got another check here. Just chasing the king down the board. If you can get the king into your own territory, there's going to be a checkmate here somewhere. These squares are already covered off by black's pieces, and so if you can maybe bring the rook back and target this pawn, force white to remove some of their escape squares. White's going to have to move the pawn up, and then you're really low on squares. You have no free squares. Probably the best thing is to get the other knight here. So here, and this is checkmate. And oh, he finds the immediate checkmate. I missed it. Nicely done. Okay, so we're gonna have to go to the. We got 1-1 each. We're gonna have to go to the tiebreaker. It's a 3 minutes, 2 second increment game. Just give them a second to start it up here. So yeah, these guys been practicing for this game, and fairly new to chess. Have had attended a couple of sessions to practice with tactics and openings and stuff, and we saw that in the beginning with the use of the French defense. But I think these ideas are new to them. I think it was well played. Game at the end was decided by right here it made it tough for Darin to come back. Right, he's playing down a piece after this point. Best move for Darin here was just moving back to a safe square, coming back, and then maybe castling, getting out of the pin. Okay, let me check in with the guys here and see what the status is. Okay, so in both cases, black won in both games. We can go back and look at the other game as well while we're waiting here. In the other game, we had this position where white is very exposed, and the problem is all their pawns have moved here, and typically white wants to castle on this side of the board, and so there's been a lot of pawn moves, and black has already castled, developed their pieces, so has a big advantage here. What white needed to do in this position was develop the knight, move the queen, and castle queenside, because that's kind of the only place that you have pawns left to defend the king. Yeah, and then at this point it's kind of hard to drop to keep everything defended. But white dropped a piece here, and then yeah, so still game on. But then there's an opportunity to win here with capturing this queen, and but we missed it, and we had the checkmate. Okay, so. Okay, so he doesn't know that he needs to play the third game, so I'm just letting him know that yeah, he's gotta play the tiebreaker game. Okay. Okay, so they know now, and we should be starting up shortly. Okay, what? We could do some analysis of this last game and see what the computer has to say about it. Let's flip over to an analysis board, and got a pretty deep analysis on. We probably don't need it that deep right now. Let's go with 20 seconds is fine, or 20 depth, whatever. See what else we missed in the position. There's probably something. Okay. Yeah. So I said this. I don't think defending or doing this with the bishop is a good idea. Probably, or doing with the bishop is the better idea, not with the queen, just because it puts you into this pin. But black resolves it right away and doesn't give white any problems. So yeah, this opens up the bishop, so taking is not ideal here. Yeah, I think this just gives white or black a chance to. Yeah, what was the better move here? Oh, better move was pushing the pawn, and what happens if you push the pawn and takes? Then I guess you attack it again, and the bishop has nowhere to go. Queen takes was no good. Yeah, and so now white can't capture this because of the pin on the king. Let's check on our game. Oh, it hasn't started yet. Okay. All right. So instead we got f6 here. And yeah, and we hung a piece, so. Check was good. Yeah, and this was a mistake because it hangs mate in two, right? You can just take the piece. Black has to take back because of the back rank, and there's no way for the king to escape. And then the rook takes, and it's checkmate. But misses that. Could have still traded the piece off, I guess. Trading the rook gives you time to save the other rook here. Or I guess you don't have to save the rook if you didn't move the bishop, but yeah, okay. Lots going on. Yeah. Take the piece. there's yeah, it's yeah, and this is the other main mistake here is now a couple of moves ago black hung mate in two, and now white hangs almost the same mate in two here. So takes and queen takes, and that's checkmate. So misses it, and then sacrifices some pieces, which was not really necessary. But it can be hard in this position where you're not really sure what to do. It can be hard to find a good move. Instead, white needed to make some room for the king to have a fighting chance here. But at this point, it's still difficult because you're 2 pieces down. So. Okay, just checking with the guys. Okay, let's go back. Looks okay. Our game hasn't quite started yet. So I'm just covering the InfluxData Gambit chess tournament. We've got 4 brackets. This is in the C bracket. Round 1 of the tournament. So the first pairings that have come up yet. So. Let me see if I can pair these 2 guys up. Okay. Okay, so apparently we lost them for the rematch, so we might have to reconvene for the rematch. Maybe while we're here, we could cover a previous game. So we got a couple games by Sahas and Bar to cover. So let's go over those. This was played earlier, and I haven't had a chance to cover them yet, so let's do a game review. Okay, so game 1, let me just reset all these boards so that we get a fresh view of them. And let me see here. Let's do it in analysis mode just so I don't have to. Do it with the. Okay. So Bar opens up with e4, and we get the French defense and the exchange variation where white takes the piece and opens up the bishop for black, kind of resolving some of the positional challenges in the French. So this looks, pretty standard here. These players are rated, about 1,000 to 1,300. So we're going to see some pretty standard or stronger openings at this level. White may be afraid of the knight coming in or the bishop pin, so taking the choice to block that off early. This is a good move by black. I think when you're playing the French, your French exchange, you're either looking to castle kingside or maybe looking to castle queenside. But with this pin here, I don't think you have time to do that. I think castling kingside is probably the better choice. And already white put some pressure onto black and to try and figure out what to do here. So maybe you block with the queen, forcing the queens off the board and giving you some time to castle to safety. Only potential problem here is white can take with the bishop and kind of damage your pawn structure, but it's not so bad for black. I mean, it opens up the file for the rook, and maybe you're not so sad to see that. Okay, we also get a blocking with the bishop. This develops the piece as it blocks, so this is a good choice. Now possibly making it a little bit easier to go queenside if you want. White takes the opportunity to damage the pawn structure. Now you definitely want to go kingside. And comes in for an attack. This is threatening to win a piece, right? So if black ignores this in castles, then white takes the bishop, pawn takes back, and then the queen takes back and wins the piece. But there's a tactic at the end of that, is the rook will be in the right place to pin the queen to the king. So maybe it's not a free piece and you can castle. Castling is fine. And he takes it. Now, does he miss the fact that there's a tactic here with the pin and you can't take it? Okay. Looks like our game got started. Maybe we should hop back over. Okay, let's hop back over. Sorry for the flipping back and forth here, but our rematch just got going with Darin and Wojciech, so I'm kind of curious to catch how that's going. I'll leave the evaluation bar up there. You can see that white is ahead here. But it's just positionally. There's no kind of material difference. Pawn can't capture en passant because the king is still in the middle of the board. I like this move. It kind of threatens this piece. Okay. What is going on? Black trying to make room to castle. I like this. You're maybe threatening to capture it with an attack on the queen. Not sure that's all that strong, but black should get out of the way now because the king and queen are in line with the rook. Okay, captures. I'm not sure this just doesn't help black's position now. The queen has to get out of the way because of the revealed attack on the queen, but I kind of like this for black. Like black's now got some pressure here. This knight can't really move because it's blocking the attack. You still have the queen defending it, so it's not conclusive, but maybe if I'm black, I put some pressure on that knight. This doesn't do it as well, but there's something here. Okay, this left the defense of the knight, so I don't know. Okay, so you got to move the queen. The check doesn't quite work, but maybe you can go here, attack the knight, and okay, so now you can win this knight and defend the other knight at the same time. And now white's lost his chance to win that piece. Oh, but black hangs the queen, and white sees it immediately and snaps it up. Okay, so that puts Wojciech in the lead, and it's going to be hard for Darin to recover here. Now, there's this file's not so great anymore. It's kind of staring at a pawn that's defended. Black has to figure out how to regroup and get an attack going. Kind of tough. I maybe liked this spot better for the rook, but now it's on an open file, which is good too. And then he immediately jumps over to here. This is going to allow white to trade the pieces, which is probably not what black wants. I mean, if you're down in material, you want to keep as much material on the board as possible to try and create counterplay opportunities. And by trading off the rooks, you're really limiting your chances for a comeback. I think rook should be here to attack this knight. Rook here, move the piece, not there. I don't know where you move it, but I just kind of liked it. Yeah, okay, this is, you can capture this with the knight here. It's kind of just hanging. Takes. King has to move. And he doesn't see it. This was a big chance for Darin to kind of get back. He's still got lots of opportunities here. So rook. This knight is still. Pardon me. The rook is still hanging. I think recapturing with the rook there was probably better. Not damaging the pawn structure in front of the king. White doesn't see the hanging rook, so I think black's probably going to see it now. And if he captures it, it's not equal, but it's a lot closer. And a rook and a knight against a queen can cause a lot of trouble. But black doesn't see it and moves the attacking piece away. That might give white all they need to win the game now. This pawn is looking pretty menacing. We've got push the pawn once to defend it by the rook, and then check, forces the capture. But he misses it, and he undefends the pawn. So now black can capture this pawn undefended. Anything goes in these games. It's not over. It's not over ever. Just push the pawn. That's the way to go here. The rook's already defended. All right, attack another piece. Now you gotta back up. Actually, you're gonna lose that pawn now. Knight can take, rook can take. There's also a fork here, forking the queen and the rook, but the guys don't have a lot of time. Darin's got 20 seconds left and counting, so Wojciech finds a nice tactic of checking the king and forking the knight and winning the knight. So that's probably going to be game. It's there's not a lot of time left. He's going to have to play really fast. Probably just capture this. Now you're up a queen, very clean. This check was a little bit better because we could just win this pawn a little bit, but he's ignoring the pawn and he's going to make another queen. And the only thing you have to be careful there is not to stalemate your opponent. Don't forget they have counterplay. Okay, this gives Darin a chance. Now you're going to have to be very precise, because if you give black a free move, he's going to make a queen. But it doesn't look like there's going to be a chance for that. Black's only got 2 moves, and the next move is checkmate, and he loses on time anyway. So Wojciech wins the match there. Okay, very exciting. Let's hop back to our. Let's hop back to the game we were analyzing here. This is Sahas versus Bar. And the question was, is he going to take the piece because there's this pin here. But because it comes with check, it looks like we're fine. Now, the key is he has to move out of the way. You can't keep the queen in line with the king here on the next move, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. And he does keep it in line, and black sees the pin. So that's problematic. There is a save here though, and white needs to see bringing the bishop out to block the attack, and so he sees that. So that's great, saving the piece. Okay, black had the idea of attacking the d4 pawn, and then taking it to attack the bishop. And if white takes, black takes back with the bishop, pressuring that bishop, trying to reestablish that attack on the queen. This is a mistake because of I guess c5 still, just bringing in that attack. Okay, but it's kind of a subtle idea. And white castles in time, resolving some of the problems. And the attack just comes a little bit too late. I mean, this is nice, but maybe it wins a pawn. How do you defend this as white? I think you just bring the rook out. Yeah. Okay, black adds to the attack. And now you have, the nice thing about bringing the f rook out is maybe you drop this knight back and defend the bishop here. He does, and then you kind of just... The bishop didn't have to retreat here because there was no threat of the bishop capturing, because the queen would hang in the end. So this c5 idea still is good. It's a little bit different now because it looks like it's a sacrifice, and then you bring this pawn forward to attack the bishop, and the bishop still can't move because of the pin. The queen's going to have to move out of the way, and then pawn takes bishop. So there's still something there. Okay, queen moved really far. I guess the thought is that you don't want to take this because it's defended 3 times. So white's switching to the other side of the board, attacking a pawn. Defending the rook. It seems like a reasonable move. It kind of undefends this rook, right? So you're kind of making this pin stronger by moving this up. He's trying to get it out of the attack of the bishop, though. Bishop jumps over, trying to take advantage of this pin now to win this piece. White brings the other rook over to defend it. And black now sees c5. And c5 is really strong now because it also comes with an attack on the queen. So white doesn't have time to capture or do anything about that pawn because of this, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. You can capture this and put you on the right diagonal to try and help, but I'm not sure that's going to be great. I think maybe just pawn or bishop captures, one of them might still work. Yeah, his pawn was better. Now maybe the rook sack here works out for white. The pawn retakes, and then the queen can take and still kind of come in time to be the hero. Maybe. Okay. Apparently this idea is better. Okay, this is really a really nice tactic. So black can't take the rook because the queen is hanging, and so there's a lot of threats here, and white's doing all right. Queen has to move. Now maybe you capture it. Kind of just relieve some of that pressure. Yeah. And then I don't know. There's back rank checks which could be interesting. This check attacks double attacks this, but it's defended twice, so maybe that doesn't work. Okay. Forces a trade. Yeah, taking with the queen would bring the queen back to the center of the board, which could be better. And this check doesn't really do anything at the moment. It's funny how this knight move was the best move a move later, and now it's a mistake or an inaccuracy. Computers are weird. Yeah, this is a nice square for the knight. It can be kicked out, but white has to make a little bit of a concession in their position if you want to kick it out. White's plan is just to keep pushing the pawn and try and promote, but it's going to be difficult to do. Okay, the game ended here, and it looks like it was a time issue. Black ran out of time, only had 32 seconds on the clock at this point, and didn't make a move in time. So game one went to bar. Okay, game two. Let's fix the board. Game two. Let's try it without the analysis on. Okay. This is again French to French exchange variation. I played this a lot a long time ago. Kind of abandoned the French for the Caro because I don't really like the positions of the exchange. Tends to be very open, and the games are kind of always very similar, but I found it just tough to get a consistent advantage with black. So okay, we get the same idea. Didn't is this the same game? This is the same game. I think I'm looking at the same game. Okay, somehow picked the wrong thing. Let's close that. Let's close that. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that. This is game two. We get Queen's Gambit and accepted. So now we've got the Queen's Gambit accepted, and black takes the free pawn, but The idea is that white is going to attack it on their next move and try and win it back. So now the pawn's attacked, and black has to decide, are they going to try and defend the pawn, which can be pretty awkward, or you know, or they're just going to give it up. And in this case, black doesn't mount a defense for the pawn and just gives it back, which means that black gave up a center pawn for a c pawn. Okay, so black pins the knight. We got a knight attack here, jumping back, taking advantage of the pin, and white will have to defend it. And that defense hangs the defense of the g4 pawn. So great catch there. Yeah, so the problem with this response now is that the bishop is under attack. And so this is just going to hang the bishop. So that's a big advantage for Bar. And then, okay, I don't know if I like this, but so the bishop's under attack, and you attack with another piece. I think the problem is black is risking losing both pieces, right? So capture. It's probably okay. You have time to move the bishop, but it seems risky, especially right. Okay, so capture. The problem is it comes with a threat on the queen, and now you have both the queen and the bishop under attack, and you can't save both of them. So that's definitely an issue, and that's exactly what happens. And now you're under a lot of pressure here. You're gonna have to move the queen, and then the bishop falls to the pawn. So Bar giving back the material here. You've got a check. You would pick up a pawn, but you had to give back some of the material you won. This threatens the b4 pawn with both the knight and the queen. And yeah, I guess there's no good way to defend that pawn. You had something like maybe knight back here, but it's also a very sad spot to put your pawn, or put your knight. You may just want to allow black to take it, because you don't want to deal with putting your pieces in that kind of bad position. So black is up in material, but white has got a development advantage here, so it's definitely not over. Black gets castled, and now black's king safety is better than white's. This is an okay move. This is a check, but I don't think there's a follow-up to it. Okay, we're going to trade of pieces, and now the e-pawn falls. This could be a problem for black if white can get the rooks into the position. He can kind of gobble up all the pawns on the 7th rank, and that advantage might be slipping for Bar. Getting a king into the defense, that's not going to be super effective. Okay, now forcing a trade of pieces. You can't move out of the way because the rook in the back is hanging. You can't ignore it because the trade still leaves you with a rook on the 7th, which is not bad. So he accepts that. I guess the question is now, how do you kick the rook out and still defend all your pieces, which is going to be challenging to do. Although I like this effort here. Yeah, and those checks are challenging. This undefends the c pawn now, and the rook can capture it. So that's not ideal. I probably black's in a tough position here. Not really feeling the material advantage at this point because it's only two pawns, and you know, if I guess you know your pieces are really passive here. The rook hasn't moved off the back corner, and your knight's on the back. So this is kind of difficult. Defending the g6 pawn, and then white goes after the other weakness. You could defend it here, but again, I mean, I think you probably have to defend it here, but it puts the rook in such a passive position. This pawn push kind of left a backwards pawn here, and but white didn't really seize the opportunity to capture it, and now black's been able to reroute and keep both pawns defended. Okay, this push might be a little bit premature because the king can catch it, and you don't really have time to get behind the pawn. The rook wants to be behind the pawn to help push it, but maybe the threat is that you're going to push, and the king can't go get it because the rook would be or the knight would be undefended. So you'd first have to resolve that. Yeah, and that's what happens. Okay, I probably would have immediately gone for that pawn. I think if you give black a lot of time, they're going to get some resources in place and make it hard for you to capture that. Okay, this is tough here. He's got to watch for checks now. The king is on a vulnerable square. That puts a lot of squares off limits to your rook. Okay. That was one of the squares we got. So like this move is dangerous. You can't recapture because of that fork. White throws in a check. You're still on a vulnerable square. A better choice might have been falling back just because you get out of the range of this knight. Okay, now you can block this way and you're doing okay. Okay, the problem is black has only got 8 seconds on the clock and is low on time. So these guys are playing really fast now. And it looks like black runs out of time because of the check. So this round goes to Sahas. And we have the tiebreaker game. 3-minute game now to determine who the winner is. We've got sort of a French defense response again, French exchange, very popular. Okay. 4 knights variation? I don't know. Okay, this is a pin. You probably want to defend it. Maybe dropping the bishop back. Yeah. Okay. That's... I mean, I don't think that works. I think if I'm... Can I just take this if I'm black? So takes... Maybe take, and I've given up a knight and a rook for a bishop and a knight and a pawn. And I have check, and you're gonna have to defend it. I don't know. Maybe not, but I'd be considering it. Okay, instead attacks the pawn, and we just trade. Instead of castling, okay, so he has to castle, right? He can't do this. But now he's threatening to take here and fork the king, like the queen and the bishop. So black has to respond to it, defends it. It's good. Forcing the bishop to make a decision. Moving out of the way. Bishop moves and redefends the d4 pawn. Okay, so go over here. This is not a free piece because it's defended by the queen. Trades, and black's trying to open up the e-file. White kind of moves and lets them go, and this walks into a tactic here where you can attack both the queen and the bishop, and the queen, the queen has to find a square to go to that it's safe on, but then white can force you to lose the bishop, and typically the bishop's worth more than the knight, so just slightly. That is interesting, but I don't think. Okay, white chooses to do the trade of queens. It wasn't necessary. Could just continue to take the bishop, but this is what we have. Now this move is not so great, and maybe why the queen trade wasn't great, because at this point the only move you have to get the knight off to the side is one where black can take and force you to mess up your pawn structure. Doesn't do that just yet, but if it sits there, you're going to give black the opportunity to do that, and we see that eventually happens here. Now the queen's off the board, so this isn't so bad for white. Yeah, this was necessary. You couldn't grab the bishop because rook takes with check, king moves, and you've lost the rook for the bishop. So white drops back to defend it, and now we've got the trades, and now we've got bishops against each other in a pawn ending. This take wasn't good for black because it straightens out white's pawns, and it's going to give white an advantage in the ending. But black is a little low on time, so white's got the time advantage, and it's going to be hard to do. I think this move was probably a mistake because it lets black into the position, and whereas with the pawns like this, black is shut out, and so you don't really want to let him into the position. Something like this forces a passed pawn on this side of the board. So, but now black gets into the position, and it's going to be really hard to do anything. Yeah, like now, even if you push, black can just take the piece, but that loses because you can check, you can take and promote first. So black has to first take the piece. Does this work out? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work for white, because if you take back, black has got this, and this pawn can't go forward. So now black's winning. So yeah, I think what's going to happen is all these pawns are going to fall. But you've got some counterplay here, and yeah, it doesn't quite work out. Yeah, takes, and this pawn promotes, and that's going to be the game. Okay, so Sahas wins the game. Okay, so we've got some changes to make to our brackets. So maybe let's. Okay, so I've already got Sahas in the winning in the bracket here, and then here we've got Wojciech versus Darin. What was the score? We had 1-1, and then we had who was? Sorry, I've already lost it from my brain. This was not the final game, was it? This was the 10-minute game. Oh, I got logged off here. Let's go back. Yeah, okay, so this was the 3-minute game, and it was Wojciech who took the win. So yeah, so Wojciech takes 2. All right, Wojciech moving on. All right, that's it for now, and I'll have more coverage of this as we go on. See ya.